Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to bring to you Dominiece Clifton. And let me tell you about Dominiece. She is a fire starter on a mission to ignite and spark 1,000 women entrepreneurs and nonprofit founders. As a clarity coach, business strategist, and the founder of Transformation U, capital YOU, University, she empowers women to find clarity so they can build their confidence and a successful business or organization. She's also the founder of Move and Still. I can't read this early, I guess. As the founder of Move and Still, she supports organizations by offering stress reduction. Oh, who doesn't need that? And mindfulness services to increase our well-being. Please join me in this discussion today about escaping the greatest entrepreneurial pitfall. Yes, the confusion loop. Please join me in welcoming Dominiece Clifton. Dominiece, oh my goodness. I think we're going to have two podcasts on this one, but we'll start out with this one. So thank you so much for being a guest. I always start out with two easy questions for you. The first easy question is, where do you live? Where do you call home?
So I am in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm on the East Coast. I'm actually originally from Florida, but I've been here, my family, we've been here for over 25 years. So this is home, like I became a woman here, but I have a little Floridian in me also.
Well, you still have the beach, so there you go, not too far. So I talked about, kind of what you're doing right now, but I'd love for you to share that journey that brought you to do what you do today. What's your backstory of that, the paths that took you on this journey?
Yeah. Without us being here for the next hour and a half, I'll give like the expedited version of this, but I can't tell my story without starting in my childhood because so much of my story started there. Literally with my conception story, I was born into a very traumatic birth situation to a teen mom, and I've never met my biological father. And I was separated from my mom at a very young age while she went to college, stayed with family and friends, but that caused a disconnect between us. Like those first 3 years when a child is born are very significant in development and connecting with the parent. And I was separated from her. And so I grew up with the void. My dad wasn't there. And emotionally, I felt disconnected from my mom. And so that left me feeling a lot of emotions that I didn't know how to process as a kid, right? Like I knew that things were off and there was an emptiness, but I couldn't describe it. I was an only child. So there was this perpetual loneliness. And I just learned to stuff all of that stuff down. I didn't, there was no therapy back then. Like children are doing therapy now. That wasn't really a thing. And so I learned to cope the best way that I could. And that looked like suppressing my emotions and numbing, but that also looked like emotional eating and overeating. And that started at a very young age, around 7 years old. And it was very drastic. It was like 7 years old, I was a normal weight. And then by 8 years old, I was very overweight. And I struggled for about 2.5 decades with emotional eating. And I was someone who did a really good job. I called myself a masker. I did a really good job of hiding how I was feeling internally by overachieving. And that is how I spent most of my life. So from about 8 years old up until I would say 30, I lived in this like this facade of who I wanted the world to see me as. I was a high achiever. I excelled in my academics. I was the person who, like, would travel all over the world by myself. And so everyone saw me and was clapping and thinking that I was doing such a great job. And I felt like I was in a play, because when the lights went down and the curtain closed, it was me stuck with all the internal voices from my childhood that was still reminding me that no matter what I did, I still wasn't good enough. I still wasn't worthy. There was so much shame and guilt around my conception story, some of which I'd learned, some of which I had inherited from my mom. There's like generational trauma. And that was my life. And I lived that way, just really stuck in limiting beliefs and stories. And then around 30 years old, I just got tired of existing that way. I always knew that there was more for my life. And even before I knew what that more was, I could feel my soul, my intuition nudging me that this isn't it. Like, this isn't what you came here to do. This is not how you came to exist. And so I just started following those whispers. It started with feeling called to meditate. And that actually started when I was pregnant with my first daughter. There was something there about like being pregnant and, creating something from the womb and like feeling called to stillness. And it just built over time. Over the last 7 years, I've explored a ton of healing modalities, but it just started with me feeling called to meditate and allowing myself to lean into that calling. It started with me building a morning routine and allowing myself to be consistent in that space. And then the last thing I'll say here is that for a few years, I was doing those things. I was meditating. I was trying to be more consistent with my health and wellness journey, but I was still having a hard time. Like, I was still struggling with this older version of myself and the limiting beliefs. And so I would do things, but I find myself always gravitating back to those negative and old habits. And then in March of 2020, almost 5 years now, I was at a very low point in my life. This was at the time where COVID had just started. And so the
Yeah.
world was falling apart externally, but also in my home, things were really bad. My marriage was on the brinks. We since have separated and, are working through divorce. I had a newborn and a toddler. I was unemployed. And so I was literally in a space of like, I'm in a very deep hole and I have no idea how to get out of this. And so I started meditating, right? I knew nothing else to do but to pray and meditate. And one day when I was meditating, after a few weeks, I got a download that said every day for the next 90 days, focus on your mind, your body, and your spirit. And I did that. I did that for 90 days. And the timing was perfect because we were quarantining and there was nothing else to do. But after that 90 days, I came out as a completely different version of myself. And that is really what projected me to the path that you're seeing today, this version of myself that you're seeing. I've transformed physically, I transformed, spiritually, emotionally, and it just came from following the whispers over the last couple of years.
Wow, what a story. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there relating to what you're saying. So let's talk about the title of this, Confusion Loop.
Yeah.
As you were talking, I could see how that confusion could come about, but what was that discovery time like? Was it just an aha moment, or was it little by little that you just started to peel the onion and think, oh my gosh, I am in this never-ending loop?
Yeah, I wish I could say that it was an aha moment. It was peeling back layers over the years. So after going through that 90-day transformation, that was also the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. I came out of that transformed and I wanted everyone to feel the way that I was feeling, right? It was like coming out of a fog, waking up from autopilot, recognizing that there was something bigger than just the going to work, the coming home, like the things that we kind
Yeah.
of get lost and inundated in. And it was just like, oh my God, like I have a greater purpose. I still have some things to figure out, but I know that there's more. And I wanted to shout it from the rooftops to everyone, like, you all should be doing this. And so I started coaching because that's how I felt. And that was for me the best way to empower other people with what I'd gone through. And, for about 4.5 years, I've been through a really hard entrepreneurial journey. There have been some wins and there have been some highs, but there's also been a lot of lows. There's also been a lot of sacrifices. There's been a lot of time invested and money invested in myself, in my business and coaching programs, and, trying to figure it out, online courses and certifications. At this point, I've spent over $60,000 in trying to figure it out. And I was feeling very discouraged because no matter what I did, I try a program and see small results, but nothing, like they promised, or nothing like some of the other
Yeah.
folks in the program were getting. And so it started to erode my confidence. Like I started to feel that something was wrong with me. Like I'm looking around and it seems that everyone else has figured this out. Why can't I figure this out? Right. And I existed that way for about 4.5 years. And it got to the point where I was just like afraid to even dream. Like I was on the verge of just quitting and, just walking away, even though I knew deep down that my soul was destined to guide and support other people. It was like, I am exhausted from trying to figure this out and it's not working. I'm putting in so much effort and energy and it feels like I'm swimming upstream. So
Mm.
that was the first few years of my journey. And thank God the universe guided me to a really wonderful mentor that started working with me and like helping me to come out of that fog. And what I realized was that a lot of the ways that I had been taught about business and entrepreneurship and just going about things, they were a little bit backwards. And going all the way back, it really started with me not having the clarity I needed from the beginning. And so I would start a coaching program and they would just assume that I knew who my ideal client was and like what they needed. And they would tell me to put together a program and put together all these materials and start posting on social, but I wasn't clear about who I was talking to. And so I was kind of just talking into the abyss and it wasn't
Mm.
resonating with anyone. And I did that for 4.5 years. I would put something out, crickets, no one would respond. So I would create something else, crickets, no one would respond. A few people like trickling in. And about a year ago, I started recognizing that I had been getting lost in certain cycles. And so when I talk about certain cycles, for example, I was someone who for years just kept consuming information. It was like, oh, I don't
Mhm.
know enough, so let me learn more. It's not working, so let me learn more. So I'm reading all the books, listening to all the podcasts, all the audibles, all the programs. So that was me stuck in a space of overconsumption. And then I was also someone who would like go from one thing to the next. So again, if I put something out and it didn't resonate, I wouldn't try to figure that out. I would just assume that that wasn't it and I would start something else. And I was kind of moving around like a bumblebee. And Spirit started making me realize that my last 4.5 years of experiences, I'd gone through those so that I could understand once I started working with other women entrepreneurs and nonprofit founders where they were in their journey. I started having conversations with other women entrepreneurs and I started noticing those same cycles and patterns, the same, stuck in overconsumption, being the pollinator and moving from one thing to the next, being the procrastinating perfectionist. And so I'll say this and I'll pause. I realize that sometimes we can get stuck in what I'm calling a confusion loop. And that happens when you aren't clear about who you are, who you're serving, and what they need. When you don't have that basic foundational level of knowledge, then you end up just kind of on a hamster wheel, spinning
Mm.
your wheels, trying to create new things. You're putting out different products, different services, you're putting things on social media, but no one's responding. And in order to get out of that space, you have to, one, recognize that you are there, right? Recognize which archetype or archetypes that you most likely fall under. But then you also have to find the clarity so that you can put things out that resonate with the people that you're desiring to serve.
Yeah, I think once you know that, then the messaging also becomes clearer to the folks. It's not so much you have to reinvent the wheel, it's just you need to be better at describing the wheel
Yeah.
to the people
Yeah.
that are around you.
Yeah, the
Yes.
messaging resonates, and I'll add this really quickly. When we put things out and we aren't consistent, it's really hard for the audience that we're trying to reach to trust us. It's like, oh, she's doing that this week, and then oh, next week it's a new thing, or next month it's a new thing. And so it's really hard to build trust, which is so necessary when you're trying to build a business and attract people to you. It's hard to build trust when your messaging is constantly changing. And so that was my
Mm.
experience for years. And that is also the experience that I've seen in supporting women entrepreneurs. And again, when you aren't clear, right? You're putting out a message that's not clear and confused minds don't buy. And so you kind of end up in this
Mhm.
cycle of creating and, nothing really happening.
Yeah, that's so true. Like for me, I have several businesses, but I always try to tie them in. My anti-aging is because, I also teach public speaking and getting on camera, engaging from any stage. And if how you look and feel is keeping you from doing that, I can help you there. But,
Absolutely.
you have to really, if you do have different businesses, and many do, just how do they all tie together to help
Mhm.
them ultimately? The goal is to help that person grow their business and grow as an individual. So, from those feeling stuck in their business, how can this understanding that archetype that you talked about really propel their business?
Yeah. So I won't go through all of the archetypes, but I will name them, right? Because just by the names, you'll be like, oh yeah, I can understand what that one is, or maybe I resonate with that one. This all came to me as a download. And so I'm sharing with you like what spirit entrusted with me. And literally after they came over a series of weeks and I was putting all of this together. And then once I had the 13, I was like, oh my God, I have lived and been all of these. And like, how crazy is that, right? So I'll share them out. Each of these archetypes basically highlight a different way that the confusion loop manifests, but the root cause is the same, right? The root cause is the same. It's a lack of clarity around who you are as a business owner, because so much of that goes into what type of business you create. It's a lack of clarity around your ideal client, and it's a lack of clarity around having a strategy to serve that client. So the 13 archetypes. So I talked about the first one already. You have the overconsumer. And then you have the pollinator. Think about a bee kind of going from one thing to the next. You have the overthinker, which we've all been. The copycat creator. That's the person that looks around, sees someone similar in their industry, and tries to do and mimic the thing that that person is doing, but they don't have the desired success that they want because they're not doing something that's authentic to them. So that's a copycat creator. And then you have the solo warrior. That's the person that tries to do everything themselves, right? They don't have a team. They're a solopreneur. They're trying to do everything and they're burned out. The procrastinating perfectionist. That's the person that spends all the time making the website beautiful and the Instagram beautiful and all of those things. And they're not really doing the things that generate income and bring the clients in. The visionary dreamer, the person that gets stuck in the big picture, but can't break that down into smaller strategy and action. The discount diva or dude, I've seen this one a lot in having conversations with women entrepreneurs. We think that if we dumb our prices down and we make things really low, then we'll bring the people in. And really, it's doing such a disservice to us because what we are offering is an energetic exchange and we deserve to be compensated accordingly. The fearful avoider, you have the masker, which was me for a really long
Yeah.
time. The person that, pretends to be okay, but behind the scenes, they're struggling, they're embarrassed by it, they're afraid to reach out and say that they need help. You have the giver or the overgiver. And then you have the serial entrepreneur. And this one is a little bit tricky because you can have multiple businesses. I'm not saying that you only have to have one, but this is the person that starts a business, it doesn't work, they start another one. It doesn't take off, they start another one. And so their disservice is that they're not giving themselves enough time to really plant their feet in the ground and like figure
Right.
out how to make this thing work. It's like once they don't get the traction that they want, they just start something new. And so, energetically, the universe is not able to keep up with them constantly changing. And then the last one is the reluctant dreamer. And this is where I was when my mentor found me. I had gone through all of these stages and spaces for so long in my entrepreneurial journey that I was literally at the space of being afraid to dream about the possibilities and if I had what it took to manifest what I was
Mhm.
desiring. And that one I feel like is a really dangerous one to be in because I feel like that's where most people give up on their dreams.
Yeah. So true. So you talk about clear goals framework.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
C.L.E.A.R goals framework. Why is it effective and allowing you to really set your goals and not only set them but achieve them? That's always
Yeah.
a good one.
So when I was restarting in coaching, I have Moving Still, which is my B2B business, and then I was feeling guided and led back into coaching, which I again started in 2020. It was really hard. I didn't get the traction that I wanted, and so after doing that for about 2 years, I decided to step away and start Moving Still. And I was enjoying the work with Moving Still. I was, having success there. And spirit started guiding me to step back into coaching. And I was very reluctant to do that because it
Mm.
was like, I've tried that already. Like, I don't want to go back to that. It didn't work. But over time, I decided to be obedient. And so when I was gearing up to step back into coaching, I was like, okay, I need to set goals. Like, I am a type A person. I'm a planner. I'm very organized. And so for me, naturally, it was like, I need to set goals around, what this is going to look like. So I started working on the SMART goals framework, which most people are familiar with, but it wasn't fully resonating with me. And so I kind of started just playing around with a different way to do things. And ultimately what I came up with is the clear goals framework after doing research on like what makes goal setting effective. And so I'll
Mm.
go through what that acronym is. So the C is the cause, and that is essentially your why. So when you
Right.
set a goal, you should be very clear on why you are doing this thing. And it should be a deep why. Like you shouldn't be like, oh, I want to just start a business to make money. It's like, yes, we want to make money, but like, what is the deeper why outside of that? Because when things get really rough, your why becomes
Yeah.
extremely important for goal setting. So next you have L, which stands for level up. And this essentially means, how does this goal challenge you? It shouldn't be too hard where it's not attainable, but it should stretch you out of your comfort zone a bit. And so as you're thinking about this goal, it's like, does this push me a little bit? Does this stretch me a little bit out of my comfort zone? And then you have E, which stands for in game. And that essentially means be very specific about the outcome that you want, right? It's not, I just want to lose weight. It's, I want to lose 10 pounds within the next, 30 days,
Hmm.
XYZ. So you want to be very specific about the end game or the outcome. Here's where the clear goals framework becomes different from other goal setting frameworks. The A stands for accountability. So that means you think about, as you are writing out this goal, who or what system is going to hold you accountable. That can be an actual person that you check in with frequently and you let know, hey, I'm working on X. Will you be my accountability partner? And you set a cadence for how often you're going to check in. That can also just be some sort of, project management system or calendar. Like there needs to be something where you are checking in frequently and you're holding yourself
Hmm.
accountable. So it's either accountability with someone else or self accountability. And the last is R, and that stands for results. And that goes into, how are you tracking things? How are you measuring things? And I also like to add here with the R, also thinking about a reward. So when you accomplish this goal, how are you going to reward yourself and celebrate? I think so many of us can relate to setting goals, achieving those goals, and moving right on to the next thing, right? Like we're
Hmm.
moving fast as a society today, and we don't slow down to like bask in the fact that we just did something that was amazing and like it took a lot of effort.
Right.
And so I also urge people to think about, as they're thinking about goal setting, like, how am I going to celebrate myself when I go through this process? And so that's the clear goals framework. I use it for myself in my own life and business, personal and professional. It's a tool that I also use for my clients, and it's been really helpful for them. And here's the thing, just by writing out your goals, you increase your odds of success by 20% just by writing them out, right? Like actually sitting down and thinking about it, not just something in your head. And by having an accountability partner, someone that you check in with frequently, or some sort of system, you increase your odds of success by 40%. So already you're
Mm.
almost halfway there when you start, right? If you're intentional about setting clear goals. So that's the clear goals framework.
So, what is the 4% formula for consistency? Because, as you were talking about, consistency is important. And how did you discover that? Your sound just died?
I muted. This goes back to March of 2020 when I mentioned that I did that 90-day challenge. I came out of that. I felt amazing. It transformed me. It propelled me on a journey that I'm, still on today. But I've been doing that process for the last 5 years, and it wasn't something that I was sharing out. It was just kind of my personal
Mm.
routine for self-care. And then again, like once I started feeling guided to step back into the coaching space, I was also feeling guided to now begin to share this out, because I've seen how prioritizing my mind, body, and spirit every day has made me a better mom. It's made me a better friend. It's made me a better entrepreneur. It's made me better all around. I have more energy because I take time every day to prioritize physical movement. I have much more of an emotional capacity because every single day I'm allowing myself to release
Mm.
stress. And so that is essentially the 4% formula. When I was thinking about how I wanted to share this out with the world in a way that is easy to remember, I started thinking about the practice itself. So I do about 15 minutes of mindset work every day.
Mm.
And when I talk about mindset work, that's instructional or inspirational content. So listening to a podcast like yours, watching a YouTube video, like something motivational. It's about
Yeah.
being intentional about the content that we consume and not just like mindlessly scrolling social media, partaking in gossip. So that's mindset. I
Mm.
do that for at least 15 minutes. I do 15 minutes of a spiritual practice, and that varies for each of us, right? Like we have different belief systems, and what that spiritual practice looks like looks different. It could be prayer, meditation, journaling, getting out in nature, riding your bike. I have a friend who is a cyclist, and he does that often, and like that's when he feels most connected to spirit, and that's when he has his best downloads. And so it doesn't have to be like religion or church. It's just whatever makes you feel connected to yourself and a higher power. do that for at least 15 minutes a day. And then the last piece of the puzzle is 30 minutes of physical movement. Now, the goal is to do all of these things daily. They don't have to all be done together consecutively. You can break them up, but the aim is to try to do all of those things. When I add that up, right, that's 1 hour. I was like, well, how much is 1 hour in a 24-hour day? And it's 4%. And so the 4% formula essentially asks you to give yourself 4% of your day to prioritize your well-being.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, time has flown by. I knew it would. Such good content. If you all have enjoyed this conversation and think, oh gosh, Dominiece, we need to talk, then I'm going to share, as always, my slide that has her contact information. If you are just listening, you know, I'll read the information. You can get everything on the Vicki Noethling YouTube channel, as well as the findyourleadershipconfidence.com website. So the website is domrclifton.com. That's DOMRCLIFTON.com. Instagram is Dominiece R. Clifton. LinkedIn is Dominiece-R-Clifton- a bunch of numbers. Just search Dominiece. You'll find her. She has a podcast, the School of Healing podcast. You're going to put that, add that to your list of podcasts to listen to. Please, Dominiece, tell them about your call to action today.
Yeah, thank you. So for anyone who's listening who resonated with being stuck in that confusion loop, or maybe they heard one or a few of the archetypes, because we can be occupying more than one at a time, and they're like, that feels like me or sounds like me. I created a entrepreneurial clarity assessment, which is a very quick 3-minute quiz. You answer a few yes or no questions, and based on your responses, it gives you your most dominant archetype. So again, you can have more than one, but it's like, this is the main one. And then it gives you an overview of that particular archetype. And then it also gives you recommendations and action steps that you can begin to take immediately to begin to get yourself out of that space. And so these are very like tangible, practical, free things that you can do to begin to get out of that confusion loop. And so if you go to confusionloop.com or click the link here in the show notes, you can get access to that free quiz.
Awesome. Dominiece, thank you so much for being such a great guest today. I learned a lot and love that you shared those different archetypes, because it does like, oh, I'm looking in the mirror at that one.
Vicki, thanks for having
you.
me. I enjoy this conversation.
As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.